at the church I was at, St. Luke's Miranda, we had a really strong foundation of Mission Week, and so we had Mike Rader come to speak. And I was really blown away that he would move his family to Pakistan and share Christ there. And he called people to the front who were interested in mission, and me as a little teenager walked up. And at the time I didn't really know what I was doing or why. But again, you look back at God's thread throughout your life, and I can see from an early age mission and the need to share Christ with others was, I suppose, just a part of. I actually went to America to be a nanny when I was 18, and weirdly I think it was a time where I realised that people think differently in different places, and like people's values and ideas of the world were really different. And I think it was a cross-cultural moment for me, thinking, you know, how to share Christ with people who think differently and act differently to me. And then I went to Fiji and did a practical when I was doing my education degree, and I think those moments helped me to see the beauty of God's world and his people, but also the opportunities, I suppose, for mission. And so in 2007, I ended up in Johannesburg volunteering at a church as an apprentice, doing student and homeless ministry. And that was the biggest eye-opener, just seeing, I think, being a part of a church and then doing things that I suppose I'd seen here, but done in a different way with people who think differently, unique challenges. And I was so struck by the opportunities in South Africa to share Christ with others. At the end of South Africa, I realised I really needed training. So I was doing stuff, but I felt like I didn't have a firm foundation. I had an education degree, and I felt like, whilst I didn't know everything, I had like a really strong foundation in that. And in the same way, I realised I wanted to have a stronger theological foundation. So I decided in 2010, I came to Moore College originally to study the Diploma of Ministry for a year. But as I was here for that year, I think I just grew, and I realised that I wanted to go deeper into the Word and deeper into how to actually do ministry, really. So I stayed and finished the Bachelor. So I was here for a few years, and we're really thankful for the time here. I was living at Carillion House at the time, so I had a lot of other women who I was walking with, journeying with in life and in ministry and thinking through future stuff, and just kept growing in my faith, I think, whilst I was here. When I was in Johannesburg, the first time I'd actually attended Johannesburg Bible College as a student and really enjoyed that teaching that I got there. And the principal said, would you be willing to come back once you finish your training? And I kept saying no for years, actually. I was a chaplain at a school in Northwest for a few years, and that was a really growing time for me as well. But I think I realised that mission was still in my heart. So I started investigating with CMS, possibilities to serve in different places, and was really surprised when they heard that I'd had this connection with South Africa and that my passion for teaching and women, they were like, well, this sounds like a great way to kind of use the things you love. So they sent me back in 2017.
And you've been there since.
I have, yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about JBC, or Johannesburg Bible College, and also a little bit about your role there?
It's been going since 2005, so it's coming up on 20 years soon. And so it was actually born out of a few South African students going to Cornhill in the UK and saying, we want this type of training in South Africa. So it started kind of born out of that in one sense, and has just really grown. And it's a Bible college, so quite different from a theological college. At the moment we have diploma-like courses, a little bit more like TAFE, with knowledge and practical and workplace modules. So the end of the 2-year program, students are kind of ready for ministry. We have around 415 students, I think, this year, and we've got 3 campuses, both in the centre of Johannesburg, in Soweto, one of the townships, and Alex, one of the other townships. And so it's really been growing because I think there's many people who are keen for training who might not have access some of maybe the bigger institutions like GWC, which is in Cape Town, or the Baptist Theological College. So we're aiming to, kind of meet the gap of the 188,000 pastors who, are untrained.
So can you tell us a bit more about what your specific role in JBC is?
I work within the teaching team. I have the real privilege of being involved in teaching biblical counselling and care with my colleague Kylie. We team teach that. Also help with the spiritual formation course. We also have a Women Serving Christ elective at our campuses, which is a real joy to be teaching women and thinking about how women can minister to women. Sitting down, doing kind of Bible exposition with small groups, preaching workshops, Bible study workshops, counselling workshops. So I'm involved in lots of different things. And also part of my role is to kind of be with Kylie, like training up female staff. Because as we've grown as a college, we need more staff, and so it's been a real joy to kind of see the female teaching team kind of grow in that way as well.
You've been there for a number of years now, so do you have some reflections about the things that I guess you've found challenging, some of the things that you've really just been so surprised by and enjoyed?
Living in a foreign culture, when I first went back, I think realising I was going long term felt very different from the first few years. So I think when you kind of say, okay, this is life, this is where I'm grounded, this is where I'm going to be rooted. It's interesting being the idea of a foreigner in the Bible has become taken on new meaning, I think, when you live in a culture which is not your own. All up, I've been in Joburg for 10 years, and yet I don't understand so many things, and I kind of miss things and the humour sometimes. So that can be a unique challenge, I think. But I think the beauty of being at JBC has been that we have students from all over the continent of Africa, and so there's a welcoming unity which I've seen in the body of Christ. So it's been beautiful, both at church, which is a very multicultural church, but also JBC. Kind of learning with and sitting with people who think so differently, and yet I think they sharpen the lens of life for me. So it's been really beautiful to be refined by the difference of others and them speaking into my life. And I think the beauty of that two-way relationship and seeing, I think, God growing me. When you go as a teacher, obviously, people are often looking to you for answers, but the amount of times I've just been wowed by the wisdom and the life experience of the students I've been working with and other people in the community of things I've never thought about. So I think it's been really beautiful to be sharpened and refined as I've been there, seeing God at work in His church. Because when you're in a multicultural church, there can be kind of conflict and there can be issues, because there's differences, right? We don't think the same, we don't want to sing the same songs, we don't want to necessarily, you're coming from different angles. But it's been really encouraging seeing that it's really nice being in a context where people are different, and I've really learned and grown through being in South Africa. Before class, I get to sit with the students and just hear their stories, and I think what a joy to see them as they're wrestling with the word and wrestling with ministry and wrestling with life. I think one story I'd like to share is Mum Emily. So she has been in a community where in one sense her husband passed away, and she in one sense saw the community in a new light and her life in a new light, and she realised, what can I do with my life? How can I serve? And she looked around to see that in her community there were so many children whose parents weren't very present because they were working late. Some of them were addicted to drugs. And she just saw, it's like God grew this heart for her to serve and give. And so she came to JBC particularly to be trained in order to reach the children and youth in her community. So when I met Mum Emily, a very gentle, humble, godly woman who just loved Christ, and started sharing more of her ministry. And at first, it was just great to hear. And we didn't really realise the scope. She was often having around 120 plus children, and she was wanting to feed them spiritually, physically as well, realising a lot of them had physical needs as well, and just to be there. So they would come and knock on her door. But when she came to JBC, she's like, I want to be able to teach them more clearly. and I want them to grow up to know Jesus and to serve him. And so she's an example of someone I think who's sat so humbly under God's word and teaching at JBC. And she literally puts what she's learning into practice that next Saturday. So she's trying to apply. She doesn't want to hoard all the wisdom and the knowledge she's growing, but she just wants to gift it to the children of her community. And I think she's a great example of someone who's faithfully serving through, at times, a lot of challenging circumstances, but she loves Jesus and wants to make him known. Again, God using women's passion points, the things he's put on their hearts, for them seeking to grow in knowledge, but also skill of, for example, how to counsel someone, how to run a Bible study, how to do one-on-one with people. And I think those kind of practical ministry skills is what we want to embed in our students, and in order for them to serve more faithfully and more deeply, I suppose.
If you think back to the training that you received, perhaps with CMS or even college, how do you think that's helped you in what you're doing now?
I think in terms of CMS, I think what I was really thankful for is you have time at St Andrew's Hall, which is a place where, again, actually before I went, I didn't want to go because I'm like, I've studied so much. Do I really have to do more training in another place before I go somewhere else? But actually looking back, I can see what I love about CMS is because they're wanting to prepare you for long-term ministry, they're wanting to help you be as ready as possible. So I found the interview process with CMS, although it felt quite long and at times, a bit draining, it was actually really precious, and I look back with thankfulness because in one sense, when you're on location, you take yourself with that. So your weaknesses follow you to wherever you are. And I think CMS help you to, in one sense, identify some of those weaknesses and definitely areas of sin as well, and kind of work on them. So for example, through the interview process and at St Andrew's Hall, I realised I was a conflict avoider. And, that's really magnified in a foreign culture. And so once I was able to kind of identify that and slightly work through that, it helped to prepare me for conflict I'm going to have in South Africa. And there's been lots of different conflicts in different ways. And so I'm thankful that kind of, in one sense, helped to get me to a place of greater awareness of self. I think in order to serve deeper, because if you are taking yourself wherever you serve. And so by God's grace, I think when he sharpens and he cuts and he changes bits of our heart and life, we're more able to fully serve, and those things that could hold us back are less likely to if we've kind of dealt with part of them. So I'm really thankful for that training. I think at Moore College, one thing I'm really thankful for is the student body that were a part of my formation here, because, having friends to pray with and encourage me in mission and again, to sharpen me, I think helped to prepare me for the mission field, because when you've had a close community, people who you've walked with, some of those friendships continuing. And actually, Joe and Ryan, I studied with both of them. They're actually in Durban and I get to visit them regularly. So having that kind of support in a different province from where I am. I'm really thankful in one sense for those things, which I think helped to prepare me for what God had in store.
So Kylie, if somebody else was, in that position that you were in all those years ago, thinking about overseas mission, what advice would you give them?
I think I would give them the advice to definitely come to the Lord in prayer, and not to fear. I think sometimes the idea of overseas mission is really overwhelming. So sometimes we can feel like, I don't want to pray about it because then God might actually make me do it. So I think firstly coming to God in prayer, but then the community aspect I think is so important. I think talk to the people around you who know you, your pastors, your friends, people who see you in ministry, and say, hey, I'm thinking that I could be open to mission. And so talk to people who know you, because they can give wisdom and insight, which could be really beneficial to help you on the journey. Because I think it is a journey. Getting to mission is not just a 1 month thing. I think the other advice I would be, talk to a mission organisation early. And so, because in one sense, talking to them, they've been doing it for CMS have been doing it for hundreds of years, and I think they know what questions to ask and they can help to see if it's right for you. So the wisdom of others who've gone before you, I think, is really important and a really great way just to kind of see, should I keep moving this direction, or is God taking me in this direction, which is also good. But I think, why not ask? Why not gather people? Why not start praying?
Thanks. Finally, is there a few things that we can be praying for you as you head into this next season in South Africa?
Yes, I would love prayer. I think readjusting back to South Africa is not always easy. You start to settle in your home country, and then you go to your other home and resettle there. So pray for the settling process. I think particularly that I'm able to, kind of put down those roots again in terms of finding an apartment and in terms of re-establishing friendships and getting back into JBC. That would be wonderful. I think also prayer that, Tuli, myself and the team, would be really intentional about, to train lecturers and staff people. That would be really helpful as well, and making that a priority in the midst of busyness of the teaching and the marking and the meeting with students. And I think that I just keep trusting in Jesus. It's very easy to lose focus of what you're doing and why when life is stressful or tiring or overwhelming, that I just keep fixing my eyes on Him and trusting Him through those mountaintops experience and all those valleys as well, which are ahead.
Thanks, Kylie.